Amsterdam, wheelchairs and mobility scooters are common on bike and roll routes. The Netherlands laws welcome this, and other jurisdictions are catching up. Italy updated its legislation in 2022, and Italian disability rights advocate Roberto Romero said, "Now a person with a disability will be able to move around more easily and experience the opportunity and beauty of our cities." In 2023, Paris requested that the national government clarify that wheelchairs and mobility scooters are allowed on bike routes and low-speed roads. The French government agreed and published clear guidelines in time for the 2024 Paralympic Games in Paris. However, the UK is lagging behind.
So I'm Isabelle Clement. I'm the director of Wheels for Wellbeing.
Can you tell me a bit about what your organization does?
Yes, Wheels for Wellbeing is a small charity based in London, and we do two things. We provide opportunities for disabled people to cycle, to realise they can cycle, and we provide equipment and support with our staff and our volunteers at venues which are fully wheelchair accessible, fully accessible in all ways. The second thing Wheels for Wellbeing does is that we are an advocacy organisation, and we're as much of a disabled people's organisation as we are a cycling organisation.
Yeah, and you use a hand cycle that attaches to your wheelchair. And I understand that there are some legal grey areas for the use of hand cycles in the UK. Could you tell me about that?
There's a number of grey areas. There are issues to do with the legality of the equipment itself. It's not defined in law as to whether it is a cycle. Mine is an e-cycle, in fact. It's electric assist, just like any e-bike, but it fits onto my wheelchair, and actually it's a unicycle with some hand pedals attached and a battery. It doesn't fit in any currently legally described categories. So that's one grey area, and some people are very nervous about buying equipment which is not clearly officially legal, even though it's not illegal either. It just doesn't exist.
Italy has made it legal for mobility scooters, wheelchairs, to use bike and roll lanes and routes, including low-speed roads. And then just in the run-up to the Paralympic Games, at the request of the city of Paris, France did exactly the same thing. They've legalized the use of wheelchairs and mobility scooters, hand cycles, on cycling infrastructure and broadened it out. And is that something that you think could happen here in the UK, and in particular in France? There was no legislative change. There was just an interpretation of the existing legislation and guidance published, so that everybody knew what the rules are, what the expectations are.
Well, that's fascinating. The main thing in this country is it's very confused and confusing. It depends on the definition of something. Is it a carriageway? Is it just the highway? Is it a shared footway, a shared pavement? Is it? I love your term, bike and roll lanes. We're trying to fight for the renaming of what is here currently designed as cycle infrastructure to be mobility infrastructure, just a mobility lane. It's for everyone on wheels, on human-powered or electric-powered wheels. But yes, it's very complex in the UK. It's just very confused in people's minds. So sometimes there's cycle lanes which are part of the carriageway, and there's cycle lanes which are cycle tracks. I get confused myself about the terminology. Very few people in the general population understand those terminologies, those changes in what is legal, what is not legal, and so it just gives people anxiety if they're aware that there are limitations. To be honest, a lot of people just do what seems sensible, and few people, unless they're doing something really mad, few people get arrested or get challenged. So you do see mobility scooters on bits of cycling infrastructure, whatever it's called, and generally it's because people are pretty sensible and they want to do the right thing and the safe thing. So if it feels safer to be on a bit of cycling infrastructure than to be with the cars, but also it's less of an impediment to the people on the footway, or even to yourself who's going to want to go faster than the people on the footway, then that's obviously the logical thing to do. So the people who feel confident use the right bit infrastructure for themselves, but the people who tend to feel quite just not wanting to do the wrong thing, wanting to be within the law, and if they've looked into it, I guarantee you they've got confused. And what ends up, the result of that is people's mobility is being limited by themselves, generally thinking, I'm not sure what's legal, I'm not going to do it, I'm not going to want to get into trouble. So people either stay at home or get back in their cars or are dependent on expensive taxis and are not getting the ultimate benefit of being actively mobile. And to me that's the worst thing in all of this. It's not, it's about what it's doing to the individual and to the country, because people who are not being physically active are being more depressed, are being less healthy, as well as the planet. We just need to find a way to cut through all of this and let people who are using healthy and green modes of transport, let people use it as much as possible on dedicated infrastructure.
Seville and Cadiz in Spain, they paint wheelchair logos right onto the bike lanes, the bike and roll lanes. What do you think of the idea of having, clear signage or logo, something like that, so to let everybody know what's allowed?
I love that, and we had an example in our borough here in next door to in Lambeth, where when they were developing a new bike and roll lane, they actually did put a logo of a hand cyclist with a ponytail, and as far as I was concerned, that was my representation over there. um, and it was fantastic. Now it's very new, it's very unusual, and it created a bit of confusion then in disabled people's mind, thinking, are you telling us that we have to be there, we're not allowed on the pavement anymore? It needs to go with information campaigns, but absolutely really clear that these are shared bits of infrastructure for people who are rolling faster than at a pedestrian pace. And that needs to go hand in hand with making that infrastructure, that cycling rolling infrastructure, wide enough to allocate sufficient space for, as well as the fast cyclists, the slow cyclists, the wheelchair users, the hand cycle users, the cargo cycle users, of course, who are also equally wider. It is about equality. It's about ensuring that all women can cycle, for example. If all the facilities for years have been planned around, as I said earlier, around the young male or even middle-aged male on a racing bicycle, then a lot of women have been finding that they can't use it. Not that the cycle lane is not usable, but the cycle parking facilities at the end are not usable because they're down some steps, or the routes go up some steps and down the other side of a bridge. Well, if you're carrying the kids and the shopping in the cargo bike, you can't go up there any better than I can due to my disability. So by allying ourselves to each other, we co-created something called the Beyond the Bicycle Coalition here in London, which was with campaigners who were campaigning for better family cycling facilities, or the recognition of the fact that families who cycle with young children, whether they're on their little cycle next to them or whether they are in the cargo cycle, need wider facilities, need accessible cycle parking facilities for the heavier, larger, more expensive cycles that need to be even more securely parked than the standard bike the standard cheap bicycle. So family groups who cycle, but also the cargo logistics or small businesses who use cargo cycles for their trade, and disabled cyclists. We've found that actually we have very much common calls around the asks that we make of politicians, of local authorities, etc., of funders, is for cycling facilities which are of a different kind to what it would be if it continued to be planned around the able-bodied male on two wheels. Yeah, absolutely, the cycling groups are starting to understand, and they had been used to hearing disabled people clamoring against cycling infrastructure, because actually it was disabled pedestrians or disabled drivers who were having a voice, but actually disabled cyclists hadn't had their voice, and we kind of came to create that voice and to share it with people, and yes, the mainstream cycling organisation became very welcoming of what we had to say, because of course what we request is pretty much what every other cycling campaigner requests as well: better cycling infrastructure, better roads, cycling surfaces. But they are far more of an impediment when they're not right for us than they are to the standard cyclist, and the standard cyclist has just got used to just having to make do. We're saying we cannot cycle unless we have quality road surfaces. If you've got three wheels, you're going to have 3 times the chance of hitting the pothole. If you've got hugely cambered cycling bits of the bits of the road, or the cycling infrastructure that you get given is by the gutter, and it's the cambered bit, we're going to we're going to need a lot more energy to just keeping going straight, and we're more at risk of toppling, etc. So we're saying up the quality criteria of any cycling infrastructure. Well, everybody's happy to hear that, but actually he's also very happy to hear that actually the legislation, the equality legislation in this country, absolutely doesn't apply to cycling infrastructure, just like it does to anything else, and therefore we give stronger voice to that request for better quality cycling infrastructure. The world of cycling in general, in the UK at least, is really coming round to realising that disabled people are part of that fraternity and sorority of wheeled individuals, and together we're stronger, just like in most movements. So sometimes the disability population will react negatively to what we have to say, because they hear, we're not saying it, but people hear that there is a threat to their ability to drive. We're not saying no disabled person should be driving. We should all be on our bikes, on our cycles, on our handbikes. We're not at all saying that. We're saying we need to have the choice to be physically active and to be mobile as much as we possibly can be and want to be. And we have more reduced transport choices anyway. We want to increase them. We're not about decreasing the choices that disabled people have to get about. And if the best and potentially only way of moving around is in the car, it absolutely should be what is provided, what is available to people. So we're not saying limit disabled people's choices. We're saying expand them, because a lot of disabled people have, as I used to think, a lot of disabled people have been in a situation where the only way to move was in the car, was in a motorised fashion. I only realised I could cycle as an option in my kind of late 30s, maybe early 40s. Up until then, if I couldn't drive, I couldn't go. That was my absolute. I knew that was the case. I did not know there was another way. And we very strongly say, if the only people out there driving were disabled people, we'd be fine. The planet would be absolutely fine. All right. So we're not saying disabled people have got to get out of their cars. We're saying, in fact, we should have more disabled parking, more reserved disabled parking. But many of us are green activists, just like any other bit of the population, and we want to use our cars less. We want to have the freedom and the choice to cycle or to wheel our wheelchairs or our mobility.